The music was loud. Laughter echoed through the walls of my daughter's house. Balloons floated near the ceiling, and the scent of vanilla cake filled the air. It was Vanessa's 43rd birthday, and everything looked perfect, on the surface. I stood near the fireplace, sipping my lukewarm tea, watching my daughter float across the room like a butterfly in a silk dress. She was glowing, smiling, laughing at things that weren't really funny. But something felt off. I couldn't place it. She hadn't hugged me when I came in. Vanessa always hugged me. Even as a teenager, when she hated the world, she still hugged me. But today, it was just a quick nod, a forced smile. Then she vanished into the crowd of friends and strangers I didn't know. I stayed in the corner, mostly ignored. I watched Ethan, my 15-year-old grandson, move from one spot to another, his face unusually tight. He wasn't eating. He wasn't talking. He just kept looking at the hallway, then at his mother, then at me. That boy had always been sensitive. He noticed things. And right now, something had clearly rattled him. It was when he walked past me for the third time that I reached out and touched his arm. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" I asked softly. He blinked up at me, startled. Then his eyes darted around the room like he was checking if anyone saw us talking. He leaned in. "Grandma," he whispered. "You have to leave here, right now." My heart froze. I stared at him. "What? Why?" His face paled. "Please, just go. Go home. Right now. Don't ask questions." I lowered my tea. My hand suddenly felt cold. I tried to laugh. "Ethan, what are you talking about? It's your mom's birthday. I can't just—" "Grandma," he said again, more firmly this time. "Please, I'm begging you. Go now." That's when I really looked into his eyes. They were wide with fear, not mischief, not teenage drama. Real fear. My stomach twisted. "Okay," I said quietly. "I'll go." He looked relieved, but also sad. I picked up my coat from the rack near the door. No one noticed. They were too busy taking selfies and singing along to a song I didn't know. As I reached for the doorknob, I glanced back one last time. Vanessa was laughing with Thomas, her husband. He kissed her cheek. Lena, Thomas's sister, was pouring drinks, her eyes flicking toward me like she already knew I was leaving. I didn't like the way she smiled. I stepped out into the night. The cold air hit me like a slap. I stood on the front porch for a few seconds, stunned. What just happened? Why did Ethan want me to leave? What was I being protected from? I walked to my car slowly. Every step felt heavier than the last. I looked back at the house. The lights were glowing warm from the windows. Nothing seemed wrong from the outside. But I trusted that boy. He's never asked anything like that before. As I started the engine, I caught a glimpse of something in the rearview mirror. Ethan had come out onto the porch. He stood there, arms crossed, watching me go. There was something in his eyes, something that made my hands shake as I gripped the wheel. He was scared for me. I didn't know what was happening, but something was terribly, terribly wrong inside that house, and the worst part? It was my daughter's house. A week before the party, Vanessa called me. That alone was unusual. She rarely called unless it was to ask for something. An old recipe, money for a charity event, or to babysit Ethan when she and Thomas wanted a weekend getaway. But this time, she sounded cheerful. Overly cheerful. "Hi, Mom," she chirped through the phone, like we were best friends. "I wanted to invite you to my birthday party next week. It's going to be fancy this year. Dinner, cake, live music. You have to come." I paused. "Oh, all right. Are you sure? I didn't think—" "Of course, I'm sure," she cut in quickly. "The family should be together, especially you." Something in her voice didn't sit right. It was like when someone smiles at you but their eyes look past you. That was my daughter lately, perfectly polite, but distant. Still, I said yes. I missed her, even if I didn't always feel welcome anymore. When Saturday came, I put on my nicest blouse and a string of pearls my late husband had given me on our last anniversary together. I bought a bouquet of roses and a birthday card with a long handwritten message, hoping it might remind her of who we used to be, before things became cold. I arrived a little early, thinking maybe we'd have time to talk before the guests arrived. But when I rang the bell, it wasn't Vanessa who opened the door. It was Ethan. He looked surprised to see me. "You're early," he said quietly. I smiled and kissed his cheek. Just wanted to spend a few extra minutes with my favorite grandson. He smiled, but there was a sadness in it. Vanessa came down the stairs a moment later, still in her robe, hair half curled. "Mom, you're already here?" "I thought I could help set up," I said, holding out the flowers. "Oh, sure." She took them, glanced at them quickly, then passed them to Ethan. "Put these in water, please." I watched her as she walked toward the kitchen. She didn't say anything else. No hug, no warmth, just busy, busy, busy. I followed her in. "You look good, sweetheart. A bit tired, maybe." "Been a hectic week," she said quickly, not looking at me. "I barely have time to think. The decorator's late, the caterer brought the wrong wine, and Thomas's sister is sick again." "Lena?" I asked. She nodded. "She's been living with us for a while. Says the air in her apartment is bad for her lungs." I tried to smile, but the way Vanessa said it was like she didn't fully believe it herself. I noticed Thomas's briefcase open on the table, papers stacked in neat piles. One looked like a legal form of some kind, but I didn't want to snoop. "So," I said, "how's work?" She shrugged. "Same. Deadlines, pressure, you know." That was all I got. Then she glanced at the clock and said, "Actually, Mom, I think we're okay for now. Everything's under control. Maybe you can just relax before the guests arrive?" I nodded. Of course. I sat alone in the living room while she ran upstairs again. I watched Ethan move around the house like he was carrying a secret. Every time our eyes met, he looked away. Something was happening in this house. I could feel it. The air was too quiet. The walls felt like they were hiding something. And Vanessa, my only child, was smiling in a way that didn't touch her eyes. 2 days before the party, I offered to come by and help. It was the least I could do. After all, it was Vanessa's birthday, and maybe, just maybe, this would bring us closer again. When I called to suggest it, she hesitated. "Oh, Mom, that's sweet, but I already hired someone." "I don't mind," I said gently. "I just want to spend a little time with you." There was silence on the other end of the line. Then finally, she gave a clipped, "All right, come by after 3." I arrived with a basket of baked muffins and a small potted plant for her kitchen windowsill. I knew she probably didn't want or need them, but it felt like the right thing to do. Vanessa answered the door, dressed in a fitted black top and jeans. Her makeup was already done, like she'd just returned from somewhere. She looked surprised to see the plant. "You didn't have to bring anything, Mom." "I know," I smiled. "But I did." She gave a tight smile and took the plant without looking at it twice. I walked into the house, which already looked like a showroom. Clean, polished floors, candles in every corner, music playing softly from hidden speakers. "Where's Ethan?" I asked, glancing around. "Upstairs, probably playing that game of his." "And Thomas?" "Working in his office. He's been stressed." She said it like she wanted me to stop asking questions. So I stopped. I moved into the kitchen and began unpacking the muffins. "Do you want me to prep the dessert table or fold napkins?" Vanessa glanced at her phone. "Actually, just keep me company. I need to go upstairs for a second." "All right." As soon as she disappeared, I noticed the bathroom light flickering down the hall. I went to check it out. It was just a bulb that needed tightening. But on the way back to the kitchen, I took the wrong turn and ended up in the far side hallway. That's when I saw the door slightly open. It was the guest room, I'd never been inside it. Every time I visited, it was always off limits or messy. But something tugged at me. Curiosity? Maybe. Or maybe it was something deeper. A sense. I knocked lightly. No response. I pushed the door open just an inch. That's when I saw it. The walls. They were covered, absolutely covered in papers. Dozens of them. Taped from corner to corner. Not decorations, not children's drawings, no. Documents, handwritten notes, photocopies, even pictures. Some with red circles and scribbles, some with lines connecting one thing to another. I couldn't take it all in at once. My brain didn't know where to land. Then suddenly Lena stepped into the room from the far corner holding a mug. Our eyes met. She froze. I froze. Her expression didn't match her usual cold silence. This time she looked alarmed. "You shouldn't be in here," she said sharply. I took a wrong turn," I said quickly, stepping back. She didn't move, just stared. The smile on her face was thin, controlled. "Let's get you back to the kitchen." I nodded and walked out, feeling her footsteps behind me like an echo. Back in the kitchen, Vanessa had returned and was scrolling through her phone like nothing had happened. I didn't say a word, but my hands trembled as I rearranged the napkins on the counter. I told myself I imagined it, that it wasn't what it looked like, but deep down I knew. Whatever was on those walls, it wasn't normal, and I wasn't supposed to see it. By the time the party started, the house was glowing with people and noise. There were lights strung around the garden, the food smelled expensive, and soft jazz played from speakers hidden behind flower arrangements. Everything looked like a spread from a fancy magazine, but even with all the sparkle, I felt like a coat draped over a chair, present but forgotten. I stood near the sliding doors, watching the guests swirl around each other with wine glasses in hand and rehearsed laughter in their throats. No one really spoke to me. A few smiled politely, but most didn't know who I was. I was just the old woman in the corner. Vanessa wore a burgundy dress that clung to her like it was sewn onto her skin. She was stunning. She always had been. But the smile she wore didn't seem to reach behind her eyes. She moved from group to group like a hostess in a play, repeating the same laugh, the same phrases. I caught Ethan watching her too. He stood stiffly near the drink table, his arms crossed. His face was unreadable, but I could tell something was sitting heavy on his chest. I wanted to go to him, but Thomas stepped up to the center of the room and clinked his glass with a spoon. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said with a wide grin, "if I may have your attention. Tonight isn't just any birthday, it's the birthday of the most incredible woman I've ever known, my wife, Vanessa." Everyone clapped. Vanessa stepped forward, laughing sweetly as she accepted the mic. "Thank you, everyone. Really, this means so much to me. I'm surrounded by love, success, and family. What more could a girl want?" Somewhere in the crowd, someone shouted, "You forgot the cake!" Everyone laughed. She continued, "I've been through a lot in my life, raised by a strong, brave woman. I know she's here tonight." She looked over at me. Our eyes met. I smiled gently, ready to feel proud. "But," she went on, "life is about moving forward, building something new. And thanks to my amazing husband and this beautiful home, I finally feel like I've built a life I can call mine." People clapped again. I kept smiling, but her words sank deep into me. "Finally? Built a life of your own?" I didn't say anything. I just folded my hands in front of me and took a deep breath. As the applause died down, Thomas chimed in, voice booming, "And let's not forget the real MVP of the night, me, for surviving her temper during party planning." The room erupted in laughter. Vanessa grinned, rolling her eyes. Then Thomas glanced at me. "And of course, we're honored to have the guest of honor's mother here, who, I might add, taught her all the charm she forgot to use growing up." Laughter again. I laughed politely, but my stomach tightened. It wasn't what he said. It was how he said it. Loud, smug, and meant to draw attention to me in a way that felt mocking. I caught a few people glance my way and chuckle like they were in on some joke I wasn't. I turned to get a glass of water. That's when I noticed Lena standing alone near the hallway. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't clapping. She was watching me. Her face was blank, unreadable. I looked away. Later, I tried to strike up a conversation with her near the dessert table. "Beautiful party," I said. She glanced at me. Vanessa said you've been staying here for a while?" She didn't answer right away. Then she said, "Just until things are settled." "Settled?" She tilted her head slightly, then looked over at Vanessa. "Things always settle eventually, don't they?" I couldn't tell if it was a threat, a warning, or just a strange comment. Either way, I didn't ask further. The night moved on. Guests drank more, music grew louder, and yet, under all the noise, I could feel something bubbling underneath the surface, like a pot left too long on the stove. Everything looked perfect, but nothing felt safe. The moment I stepped out of the house, I could barely breathe. Ethan's voice still echoed in my ears. "Please, Grandma, just go." I walked to my car like I was sleepwalking, trying to make sense of what just happened. My hands trembled as I reached for the keys. For a few seconds, I just sat there, frozen, confused, scared. And then something in me snapped awake. I wasn't ready to leave. Not yet. I didn't know what was going on, but something was wrong. Ethan's face, the fear in his voice. It wasn't teenage drama. It was real. And I couldn't just drive away and pretend I hadn't felt it. So I turned the key, reversed out of the driveway, and parked a few houses down. I waited. For what? I didn't know. But I waited. 10 minutes passed, then 20. The party noises were still going strong, and then I saw something that made my stomach drop. A black van pulled up to the side gate. It didn't park in the driveway. It pulled around to the side near the back of the house where no one would notice from the front door. 3 people got out, 2 men and a woman. None of them were dressed for a birthday party. They weren't carrying gifts. They were carrying something heavy covered in a tarp. I turned off my engine, ducked low in my seat, and watched. The side gate opened. Lena stepped out and waved them in. I couldn't see their faces clearly, but I could see Lena, calm, focused, like she'd been expecting them. I didn't know what I was seeing. It didn't make sense. None of it made sense. But it wasn't right. I pulled out my phone and snapped a blurry photo. My hands were shaking so badly the flash accidentally went off. I panicked and ducked again, heart pounding. No one looked my way. I waited until the gate closed behind them. Then I slid out of the car and crept down the sidewalk, staying close to the fence. My legs felt like they were made of air. When I reached the edge of the property, I crouched behind the hedges. From there, I had a partial view into the kitchen through the side window. And that's when I heard Vanessa's voice. It was muffled, but I could make out the words clearly enough. "She won't be a problem anymore. Once it's done, we're free to move forward." There was silence. Then Thomas's voice answered. "She doesn't even know what's happening. She's too old to put the pieces together." Then laughter. Not the kind of laughter you hear at a birthday party. The kind that made the hairs on my arms stand up. I felt sick. I didn't know what they were talking about. I didn't know who she was, but my heart told me exactly who. Me. I stepped back quietly, afraid that even the grass under my shoes would make noise. I didn't understand everything, but I understood enough. Ethan hadn't been wrong. He saved me, and now I had to figure out what they were planning, before it was too late. The next morning, I sat in my kitchen, staring into a cold cup of tea. My hands still hadn't stopped shaking since last night. Everything I thought I knew about my daughter, her husband, their home, all of it had shifted. Like someone pulled the rug out from under my entire life. I kept replaying it in my head. The van, Lena waving them in, Vanessa's voice. She won't be a problem anymore. What did that mean? What were they planning? Then came the knock. It was light, hesitant, I stood slowly and looked through the peephole. Ethan. I opened the door and pulled him inside so fast he stumbled. I closed it behind him and locked it. He looked tired. His eyes were red, and he kept glancing behind him like he expected someone to be watching. "Are you okay?" I asked, pulling him into a hug. He nodded, but I felt him shaking. "I just needed to see you," he whispered. I led him to the kitchen. "Ethan," I said carefully, "what happened last night? Why did you tell me to leave?" He stared down at the table, his fingers curled into fists. Then, slowly, he began to speak. "The night before the party. I couldn't sleep," he said. "I went downstairs to get water. That's when I heard them talking." "Who?" I asked, though I already knew. "Mom, Thomas, Aunt Lena." He took a deep breath. They were in the study. The door was half closed, but I could hear everything. Thomas had papers spread out on the desk, documents with your name on them. I felt my heart begin to pound. "They were arguing," he said. "Mom said it had to happen soon. She said you were getting suspicious. Thomas said they couldn't afford to wait anymore because the buyer was ready, that if you didn't cooperate, they'd move forward anyway." "Buyer?" I asked. Ethan nodded. "They're selling the house. Your house. The one Grandpa left for you. You know, the one you signed over to Mom after Grandpa died?" I felt dizzy. My late husband's house. The only thing we still had from him. "I never agreed to sell it," I whispered. "I know," Ethan said quickly. "But they changed the paperwork. Aunt Lena. She works with some people. She forged documents. They made it look like you gave up control. Like you gave Mom the right to sell it and move you into... He couldn't finish. My voice was hoarse. "Into where, Ethan?" He looked at me. "A care home, in another state." I sat back in my chair, stunned. I'd heard stories about this. Elderly people being manipulated, quietly moved out of the way. I never thought it would happen to me. Never thought my own daughter would be part of it. Ethan continued. "They think you're weak, that you won't fight. They said you wouldn't understand what's happening until it was done." Tears welled in my eyes, but I held them back. "And that room," he added, "the guest room, Aunt Lena turned it into some kind of planning space, notes, timelines, fake IDs. I only saw it once. She caught me and told me to stay out. I saw it too," I whispered. "2 days ago." We sat in silence. Then I reached across the table and held his hand. "Ethan, I don't know what they're trying to pull, but you saved me. If I had stayed last night, I was scared they were going to do something to you," he said. "That van? I didn't know what it was. I just felt like something terrible was going to happen." "You were right to act," I said, squeezing his hand. He looked up at me. "What do we do now?" I wiped my eyes and stood. "We don't panic. We prepare." Because now I knew the truth, and I wasn't going to let them get away with it. I woke up the next day with a new kind of energy. Not fear, not confusion, purpose. I had spent my entire life keeping the peace, being the quiet one, the helper, the one who never asked for much. But now I knew that my only child, the girl I raised and loved, was willing to erase me for money, for property, for freedom from her own mother. She didn't know the woman she was dealing with anymore. I called Mr. Harold Mendez, my late husband's lawyer and trusted friend. He'd known our family for years. He answered on the first ring. "Margaret?" he said. "Is everything all right?" "Not yet," I replied, "but I need your help, and I need to move quickly." Over the next 48 hours, Harold worked like fire. He helped me retrieve the original documents, the ones before they were tampered with. We compared signatures, dates, and filings. Lena had made mistakes. And Ethan? He had helped me quietly collect photos, messages, and even voice memos from his phone. One recording had Thomas laughing about how the old woman won't even realize what happened until she's sitting in a care home across the country. That was enough. With Harold's help, I filed for an emergency court order to freeze all assets connected to the house. We also filed charges for document fraud, elder abuse, and attempted unlawful transfer of property. Lena's name came up more than once. I didn't say a word to Vanessa, not a call, not a message, not a single warning. Until dinner. I planned a small gathering. Just family, I said. Vanessa agreed quickly. Of course, Mom. I'm glad you're feeling better. I showed up early with Harold beside me. Ethan came too, his shoulders stiff but his eyes focused. He knew what was about to happen. Vanessa greeted me at the door like nothing had ever happened. She kissed my cheek and whispered, "Glad to see you're back to your senses." Thomas was already pouring wine. Lena was in the dining room, texting. I sat at the head of the table. Once the food was served, Vanessa raised her glass. "To new beginnings," she said with a smile. I held my glass up but didn't drink. "I actually have something to say before we eat," I said calmly. Everyone turned to me. Thomas chuckled. "This should be good." Harold stood. He placed a thick envelope on the table and opened it slowly. "These are court documents," he said, "filed this morning. Effective immediately, the house in question has been legally protected under an asset protection hold. Any attempt to transfer, sell, or modify ownership is now a criminal offense." Vanessa blinked. "Wait, what is this?" "You'll want to listen closely," Harold replied. "Because these documents also include evidence of forgery, false legal filings, and conspiracy to commit elder abuse." Thomas stood. "You have no proof of anything." Ethan stood, too. He pulled out his phone and played the audio clip. Thomas's voice echoed through the speaker. "She won't even realize what happened until she's sitting in a care home across the country." The room went silent. Lena looked up, her face pale. Vanessa stood, her voice shaking. "Mom, this isn't what it looks like." I cut her off. "I saw the papers in the guest room, Vanessa. I heard you. I saw the van. I know what you were trying to do to me." Her mouth opened, but no words came out. "I raised you. I gave you everything I could. And you tried to throw me away like trash." The sound of the front door opening broke the silence. 2 plainclothes officers stepped in. "Lena Fisher?" one of them asked. Lena's chair scraped backward. "This is a mistake. I didn't do anything." "You're under arrest for falsification of documents, fraud, and identity theft." Vanessa gasped. "No, wait, what?" "I wouldn't speak too much," Harold added. "You'll both be under investigation now. You may want to get your own lawyers." Thomas sat down hard, his face pale. Vanessa's voice cracked. "Mom, how could you do this?" I stood slowly, my eyes steady on hers. "No, Vanessa. The question is, how could you?" Then I turned to Ethan. He looked at me, eyes filled with something between guilt and relief. I reached for his hand. "You did the right thing," I said softly. He nodded. I left the house that night without looking back. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't just someone's mother or someone's grandmother. I was a woman who refused to be erased. And now, the people who tried to silence me were finally facing the consequences.